Okay. This is Jerry Clark. I'm with the Division of Specialized Care for Children. I met with many of you in July, and it's now August, and we're getting ready to meet again on Friday. But Tracy Meehan is going to help us get some of the answers to the questions that came up in the work group last time with her presentation. If you could all please mute your lines so that we don't have any distractions of sound from people shuffling papers and that kind of thing. This is being recorded, so it will be available for people to review. Hopefully we'll have it up and available tomorrow. Anything else, Tracy?
I don't think so. I'm going to cover the chat box in a minute. I do see a message from Brandy asking about being captioned, but no, if somebody can chat back. I did send her the script, but no, it is not captioned. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. A little different. You can see me, but I can't see me. So hopefully all is going to go well. And if the video changes at all, just put something in the chat box. We're moving towards systematic change here in Illinois through these collaborative partnerships. And it all started with your completion of the JCIH State Assessment Tool. And from the review of data collected here in Illinois, we rank the priorities, keeping in mind the feasibility of the short and long-term recommendations we might propose, given the constraints of the state of the state. And today is a chance to review some of the background material provided to you as a result of the first work group meeting in July. You'll see their applications to the prioritized goals, and you'll also see some of the sub-goal data today. Knowing what resources we have in Illinois, procedures, resources to use, supports to build on, that'll be one of our focus points for the meeting this Friday. We'll be meeting in Springfield at the address you see here on the screen. Thanks again for CFC 18 for hosting. We'll start at 10 and we'll be done between 4 and 4:30. We will have some new people joining us, and so we'll look forward to that. There should be between 28 and 30 people participating. For those of you who have questions prepared or questions as we go along, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom on the right there, and you'll see the comment in the chat. We'll break every few minutes and try to get those answered. Of course, given our short time together today, some of the questions we will want to go into deeper conversations on Friday. But that'll be the process. Those will be saved for those that we don't reach today. We will address them on Friday. So the purpose for our meeting today is listed here. Each of the items sent for your review relate to the 3 JCIH goals we've prioritized. We all have unique positions as leaders in our disciplines, and we're learning from each other. Developing a baseline in these areas will guide us to where we go and help us when it comes to developing recommendations. So here's a listing of the materials you receive for review. The work group summary notes, PowerPoint on early intervention, specifically answering some of those questions related to service coordination and system assessment happening at the state level. You received an article from NCHAM about the role of the EDDI program, and then there were 2 additional documents. One was listing the qualifications necessary for professionals in the state of Illinois to receive a credential and work in EI. And there was another showing a visual diagram from Eddie, from Ginger's office, of the process from the Eddie screening to hearing aid fitting. So those were all prepared for your review, and those are what we're going to be using for today's discussion. Won't provide us time to go into depth, and again, more depth on Friday in our full day meeting, but as we move forward, The focus of the discussions and evaluations of where we are in these areas and where we want to go as a result of our time together, you know, we're interested if you have suggestions for background support information too, to either share today in the chat or bring with you on Friday. So as a review for our cheat sheet, here are the key words from each of the 12 JCIH recommended goals. We can continue to use this as a reference. So in July, we set our priority goals 1, 2, and 3, and we decided we needed more discussions on goals 4, 7, 9, and 10. So our energies and focus are going to be in those areas. The sub-goals in some of the other areas may be reasonable to evaluate as well. If you saved the survey tool when you first took it as a hard copy to reference, you may want to either bring that on Friday or look at some of the other sub-goal areas. But for now, we're using the ones we prioritized. So here are goals 1, 2, and 3. Our data told us that goal 1 ranked 66% in our collective opinion about its importance and received a 47% feasibility ranking, telling us there was a pretty high feeling that improvements were possible. Goal 2 was at 50. Uh-oh, I hear some background chatter. Be sure to mute your microphone. Goal 2 was at 57% importance and 47% feasibility. And goal 3 ranked at 85% in importance, a little lower feasibility at 38%, or we felt that these sub-goals may be harder to implement. The recommendations will be up to this group to discuss based on the baseline data that we have and the feasibility of implementation of the sub-goals in each of these areas. We have a baseline and a starting place. What we individually have to bring to our collective group, that's really our homework for each of us. So on July 27th, or July 22nd at our meeting, discussion took place around goals 4, 7, 9, and 10. We recognize that all the goals are important. They're all recommended through JCIH. And many of us felt that some of those sub-goals might be embedded in our 3 priorities. So the data was analyzed from these 4 goals, 4, 7, 9, and 10. They revealed that we felt they had some pretty low feasibility rankings, meaning we thought they would be harder, more difficult to implement. But as I studied a little more deeply, I saw that many of those areas in the sub-goals are areas we need to celebrate the accomplishments of things that we're actually doing very well in Illinois. You'll see that in a few minutes. To focus your attentions in thinking about resources and developing baselines, we can use this cheat sheet to remind us what those additional goals were about. Goal 4, dealing with children who have hearing loss and additional disabilities. Goal 7, we thought would tie into Goal 1, or was embedded with Goal 1 of serving children with all types of hearing loss, unilateral and auditory neuropathy. Goal 9, with families having access to other families who have children who are deaf or hard of hearing. And then finally, Goal 10, the other goal we wanted more information on, was including persons who are deaf or hard of hearing in the EDI process. So again, if you've saved the survey, some of these other Goal 6, Goal 12, the fidelity, you know, maybe other areas you want to review or bring with you for Friday. So moving into the review of the materials and questions you might have to help us prepare for the next 2 work group meetings, as we begin to collect and identify what we have working here in Illinois to help us prepare for those quality improvements or recommendations. I've started a few of the resources were listed in the summary notes, and here you see a few more. On Friday, we'll be addressing all of our collective resources, your resources, as they relate to each of the prioritized goals. So on this slide, you'll see a few additional sites. Hopefully, you're familiar with all of them. Let me just quickly review the infant.org NCHAM site, Lots of excellent resources, and one of our group members suggested watching the video, the missing link video, so I provided that for you in the summary notes from the meeting and then again here. The Illinois Service Resource Center, ISRC, houses a lot of information as well, but in particular in their e-training library, there's a voice-over PowerPoint related to early intervention, and this has been used recently at several Child and Family Connections offices as a training tool. So I bring that to your attention as a possible something to build on or utilize in different areas. Also, Choices for Parents, which is worth time reviewing. They have the Children and Hearing Loss Resources Notebook on a tab there, which is available for families in early intervention. Some of you are, I'm sure, aware of the GRI, the Gallaudet Research Institute. The link here is for your reference, but I was just listening to a lecture this summer given by Tina Childress, an educational audiologist, and I heard some interesting demographic data taken from the GRI between '99 and 2012, and specifically about the rise in young children using cochlear implants and the trend of this same young population receiving bilateral cochlear implants, and think sort of ties into maybe that prioritized goal number 3. Illinois has lots of portals for information. There's DHS, Provider Connections, which is the credentialing agency, and the EITP, the EI training program, so I wanted to make sure those were listed for you. We know Illinois doesn't have a single point of entry for families who have a child, newly identified hearing loss, who are looking for support and guidance. Maybe that single point of entry may be something we want to discuss as well. Finally, I've listed the Chicago Hearing Society. I recently learned, and need more information about, but recently learned that they'll be supporting and training and receiving referrals for families who want to use a deaf mentor. So they have an application out and are in the process of expanding that deaf mentor program. So I'll need a little more information on that. So I'm going to move into the material from early intervention. Let me just check to see if there's any questions that I may have missed. Any questions in the chat? I don't think so. Are there any questions related to anything we've covered so far? Okay. So we know from a review of the PowerPoint provided from early intervention that EI is a large agency, serving an average of 21,000 children and families with active IFSPs each month, providing over 1.8 million EI services. We see that there is a state systemic improvement plan in place, and we see that there are many supporting agencies in our state, all offering resources and supports to families of children with disabilities. In review of that, we see the roles and responsibilities of service coordinators in the 25 Child and Family Connection offices through Illinois. Lots of responsibilities for those professionals with large caseloads. Service coordination is one of the 16 core services that's federally mandated, and these people are employed through those 25 CFCs, those 25 Child and Family Connection offices across the state. Each agency runs a little differently under the direction of their program manager under DHS. We know that there are designated service coordinators in each office, those who have had some additional training and are the go-to people when there are questions or need for some resources when a child comes into the program with a hearing loss or vision loss. They might not see all of these children personally, but they're there for a resource. So how is that working now? And are there things we might be able to implement to bring about quality changes and ongoing support and training for these service coordinators as it relates to goal number 2? What is our baseline and where do we go? So when we look at the data collected on the survey under goal number 2, there were 3 sub-goals measured. Well, here is our first look at some of the data that was analyzed from the sub-goals in the assessment survey tool you took in June. So I'm going to summarize, and we'll be very familiar with these data charts by the time we're finished on Friday. So thinking back, when you ranked these goals and the sub-goals, you used the categories of nothing in place, just beginning, making good progress, established practice, and can't assess. So that data was analyzed and provided in both raw numbers in each area and an average for each sub-goal. The average is what you see here, and it's represented by using a point scale on the categories I just listed. So 0 to 1, nothing in place, 1 to 2 for just beginning, 2 to 3 for making good progress, and 3 to 4 for established practice. So here you see an average for the 3 sub-goals in goal area number 2 relating to early intervention and service coordination. The goal 2 is at the top. So identify the number and percentage of families who had timely access to a service coordinator with skills and expertise related to children who are deaf and hard of hearing and their families. From the 22 completed surveys, an average on that 4-point scale of ranking categories showed the average ranking of 2.3. So in the area of making good progress. The next one, identifying the core knowledge and skills for service coordinators, that average ranking was 2. So midway in the area of making good progress. And third, the third sub-goal on develop or adapt qualifications for service coordinators who contact the families after confirmation of hearing loss. That was ranked at an average of 2.7, so good progress, nearing established practice. So to bring these numbers to life, you ranked Goal 2 as highly important with a high feasibility score. Collectively, we felt this was an area of importance and felt that there was a high probability for areas to bring about quality improvement. That plays out pretty well in these averages as we establish a baseline for each of these sub-goals. We'll want to use this data and these sub-goal activities when we begin thinking about actions and developing possible recommendations. None of the sub-goal data shows that we're firmly making good progress or established practice. Will some of the sub-goals be the ones that we choose to recommend? And if so, who will be responsible for managing and implementing, and the who and the how? Any questions on this particular sub-goal analysis? Okay, doesn't look like it. Okay, so this was the article that you received in the review packet, Understanding the IDEA Part C Regulations and the Role of EDI. We know our EDI coordinator, Ginger. She's introduced us to her staff this year, and we also know Ginger's in Utopia Dreams, where she'd like to see us in Illinois. Her staff is limited and annual funding, which we've heard about. I've also heard some of you wondering about some of the action statements of the work group, supporting and expanding activities in this office or maybe other offices. What entities might be suitable to undertake this support? This article sets out a lot of information related to EI and EDI, paying specific focus to the implications of goal number 1, all children receiving timely and coordinated entry into EI programs supported by a data management system capable of tracking families and children from confirmation of hearing loss to enrollment in EI services. The EDI staff developed the visual flow chart, which was sent as background supplement for review. Their task, when I asked for that, was allow us to see where the breaks in the process may occur. And the answer was pretty easy. There are many, many places along the family's journey with their child where breakdown may occur. Our task is to identify if there are any solutions to overcome some of these barriers. We have targeted this as one of our focus areas. So we will be reviewing the flow chart in pretty good detail on Friday and having large group and small group discussions on that. So let's take a look at our subgoal data from that priority goal number 1, which I just read. There were 2 subgoals in that, and that top bar, developing a mechanism that ensures family access to all available resources, that's well balanced, accurate, conveyed in an unbiased manner. So here you see the average is 2.9, or 55% of you said you felt we were making good progress in that sub-goal. I want to say here that we can't really go just on the length of the bars in the graph, because sometimes the raw data or how the 22 people ranked the sub-goals individually tells us more. You don't see that on this slide, but to continue, if we're making good progress in that sub-goal area, we should know how this is happening, what are the resources available, how are they being delivered, how are families receiving these, and are these practices statewide? So the bottom bar, sharing a baseline of EDDI follow-up statistics with Part C to identify gaps or needs regarding statistics to be reviewed. You see the ranking of, oh, I guess it's hidden by the chat box, but you see the ranking of 3.0. So we were hitting the entry into established practice based on the analysis of the average of the data. So this looks like an area of relative strength, but averages can be deceiving. The averages included the number of people who marked could not assess or didn't complete that particular item because they didn't feel like they had the knowledge and background to complete that item. Now the raw number showed us that in this area in particular there was a large amount of scatter among this sub-goal. So in all the ranking areas, some people marked could not assess, but this one in particular had one of the largest. So clearly people need more information about the impact this is having on families and their access to services. We need to be clear about the who and the how this material is gathered. So again, I challenge all of us to know where this baseline is, to be able to move forward to develop recommendations. We heard about the disconnect from identification to EI enrollment at the last meeting from Ann Freiberg and Ginger. So another area that collectively we've agreed to address. Any comment? No. No questions yet. Okay. Oops. Sorry. So finally, the last prioritized goal was goal number 3, related specifically to providers serving families who have children who are deaf and hard of hearing, having professional qualifications and core knowledge and skills to optimize a child's development. On this slide, you see a link to the Illinois EI Service Description Manual, and that document has all the services, billing codes, rates for service. You also see the service description that I took from the manual for audiology, oral rehab, and other related services. Now, there are qualified staff and there are billable activities outlined in the service manual. You know how large the early intervention program is with multiple disciplines. I just am choosing the one related to that priority goal number 1. Each of us sitting here, depending on our profession, is seeing this with a little different lens. The audiologist reads the service description and may say, well, I don't do items 4 and 5, the DTH and the speech language pathologists professionals are saying, well, I only do number 4 and 5. And really there's no clear definition here of oral rehabilitation. The closest one comes down in that 0.5. Provision of auditory training, oral rehabilitation, speech reading, listening device orientation and training. So these service descriptions were maybe written prior to younger and younger children receiving access to sound and might need more specialized listening skill development. Not sure, but wanted you to have the background of where exactly Illinois is and what we're using. So this slide shows you what I've referenced, the service and the staff. So the qualified staff available to provide the service. You can also reference that handout that I sent as a document. We'll be looking at that again on Friday, talking about the qualifications per provider in early intervention that went out earlier. So by definition in Illinois, in early intervention, SLPs, audiologists, and DTHs may provide one common service, and that service is oral rehabilitation. Automatically, these qualified staff are eligible to provide that service if they've met the application qualifications and are either enrolled or hold an active credential. So by definition, these 3 professionals who have an approved credential are able to provide this service to children and their families. Many of us may have different definitions of oral rehabilitation, and we all recognize that everyone comes into EI with varying skill sets. That's what gives a family a nice, diverse, transdisciplinary approach. You have a little more background from the supplemental materials, and now this current slide giving you the background qualifications that in Illinois are in place. It's not the same in every state. So we do have quality for the application process. I think we should also know that Illinois early intervention has a special category for those professionals performing initial evaluations. And many of us are familiar, but I can remind you that those initial evaluations determine the eligibility and reviewing what type of specialized services may be initially necessary for that child. I liked Ann Freiberg's sentence in the first work group meeting, the right service for the right child at the right time, and a good mantra to remember. So oral rehab evaluators are professionals that have a credential to perform initial oral rehab evaluations. They should be seeing every child referred to EI with a hearing loss, any child with a diagnosed hearing loss along the way. So I am an initial evaluator doing initial ARs, so I can speak with a little experience on this process, but I also know that there are 24 active AR evaluators, and these are DTHs with the additional credential of an evaluator. We don't know the number of speech-language pathologists that might have the training and background to perform that. We don't have that data bank yet. So 24 across the state. So anyone can access that database and see active providers working in different disciplines through Provider Connections, the link I provided earlier. At my last count, last week, there were 95 active developmental therapists with specialized in hearing, so 95 active DTHs, which is what I used to prepare that chart and table I sent out. And I keep in mind that roughly, probably 80% of those professionals work in another job full-time, and they see their EI children and those families on a part-time basis. So a single credentialed provider H may serve 2 or 3 families, 4. So that's important to keep in mind when we think about the 95 active DTHs in the system right now that have met the application qualifications. So the next 3 slides. Question, do we know how many designated service coordinators. I do not, but we will try to find that out for you, and Colleen may know, but we'll know that for Friday. So the next 3 slides will give a short explanation and material to think about, and we'll be discussing in more depth on Friday, but I wanted you to have it ahead of time and be able to think about it and review it individually. This slide shows you the sub-goals under the JCIH goal number 3, the one dealing with professional qualifications of the professionals that I was just referring. We know that there were 2 additional areas in goal 3, 3A and 3B, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But these 6 sub-goals recommended through JCIH are for all professionals working with deaf and hard of hearing infants and toddlers, and speaks to the system of determining qualifications, not just in Illinois. So the data here is averaged on this slide. We do see some things to celebrate thanks to the EI system. We ranked these goals mostly in the just beginning to the starting blocks of making good progress. And in an analysis of the raw data, the highest rankings were starting in that bottom bar, the adopting and implementing guidelines that address the professional qualifications, ranked at about 3.3, and in the early area of established practice. And you saw that that tied in with some of the requirements that are set up in Illinois and followed and managed. Then that middle bar, the following the approved guidelines, identify number and percentage of EI providers who have the core knowledge and skills and are currently providing services. Our average data gave us 3.0, so right at the top end of making good progress. And the third one I want to draw your attention to is the 4th from the top, the one that reads providing the resources needing for professionals to obtain the core knowledge and skills to serve children. So that ranked just entering the established practice range, and this again is because Illinois has core application credential criteria. Check this. Oh, thank you for answering that, Ann. So on this slide shows one of the 2 sub-goal areas in goal number 3. Both 3A and 3B, you'll remember, relate to specific communication methodology. Sub-goal 3A, intervention services to teach ASL, American Sign Language, will be provided by professionals who have native or fluent skills and are trained to teach parents. We'll get to 3B in a minute. There are 9 areas that were ranked here, and therefore 9 bars on the graph. You only see 5 identified in print, and that was strictly because of a congestion on the slide. But as a reminder, using these bar graphs is good for baseline knowledge, but can be a bit misleading. And these sub-goal areas here in 3A was the highest number. Uh-oh. Sorry. I hope that wasn't me. Okay, I think we're back to normal. Out was the highest number of rankings. I think somebody has their microphone on. May want to check at the top. We're going to hear your office background. There we go. So I was saying that in this 3A, there were the highest number of people that marked could not assess, which played into the average, than in any of the other sub-goals. So out of 22 people that completed the survey, 5 or 6 did not answer any of these questions. So these averages look like we're in the just beginning in most areas, between the 1 and 2 a little higher. But in an analysis of the raw data, I can tell you that out of the 22 responders, between 8 and 12 people selected nothing in place, and 1 to 2 people chose just beginning. So averaged gave us maybe a little higher ranking when most of us think there's nothing in place. So even though this is an average is misleading, it still gives us a good baseline information that in this sub-goal 3A, most of the 22 of us felt there was very little in place in Illinois. Thank you. So similarly, now in this slide, goal area 3B, intervention services to develop listening and spoken language will be provided by professionals who have specialized skills and knowledge. Again, there are 9 areas. They're not identical to 3A, but there are 9 areas, sub-goal areas, and 5 of them are in print, but all 9 bars are there for your reference. A few stronger scores were analyzed here. There were only 2 or 3 people of the 22 that marked could not assess. So it gave us a little stronger rankings here. Most people still, though, identified only just beginning or nothing in place for most of these sub-goals. So let's take a look at a few of the averages. The 6th bar down, 6, the one that has no print beside it, I just want to highlight, identify collaborative partners who can assist in the development of statewide systems capable of providing competent listening and spoken language instruction to families and their infants. This was ranked at a 2.4 average of making good progress, and that's one reason, maybe the ISU training program that many of us are familiar with, the 1-year training program. And I highlight that because there's 1 year left of that training program. And so when we're thinking of the who and the how and the sustainability of any kinds of training, I just want to bring that up. The second one, the second from the bottom, is a pretty high average there. Conduct a needs assessment to determine the number of available EI providers with the qualifications and skills required for developing LSL with infants who are deaf and hard of hearing. It was ranked again 2.5, making good progress. I personally am not aware of a needs assessment of that type, so will be something that we can discuss, in more detail on Friday. If these are the sub-goals that we choose to address and make recommendations. So the who and the how and the sustainability, who will monitor, who will implement, all of those questions are for this work group. That was a very, very quick overview, but I wanted to give people some data of things to think about, questions to jot down and pose. Look like the one question asked about the number of service coordinators, and that was answered 41, but could be slightly more or less, depending on the needs of that CFC. So this would be the time to be thinking about our baseline and those prioritized goals. Would be a time to be reviewing maybe some of the sub-goals in other areas that we want to embed. We'll be looking in depth at the 4, 7, 9, and 10, which were identified at the first group. And contacting me if you had any questions.
Hey Tracy, do you mind if I interrupt for a second?
I do not.
Okay, this is Christine Pedoy. I am, just to give you guys some background, I'm Southern Illinois. I am down kind of 20 minutes from St. Louis. My biggest thing, and if you discussed this already, I apologize, I couldn't make it to the first meeting. My biggest issue in terms of losing people to follow up and having a lot of issues is related to military. I'm right by Scott Air Force Base, and we have quite a few kiddos who they're born here at the hospital, and then I go to contact them and they say, oh, we just got orders to go to Georgia, or we just got orders to go to Korea. And then my other issue with the military is TRICARE and kind of that setup. I'm meeting some resistance in terms of, well, you don't need a referral, yes, you need a referral, that kind of thing. I just wanted to know kind of everybody else's opinion or feedback, or if they've seen that.
Good information. Good. We're jotting that down in our notes, and I anticipate the goal area number 1 being a significant discussion point. Those two points that you brought up and others. So thanks, Christine. Welcome aboard.
Tracy, this is Ginger. Very quickly, let me just let Christine know the State EDDI program is very willing and able to work with Scott Air Force Base or any military base. They, however, do not fall under our jurisdiction, so they're not required by law to report to us. But of course, we always would be more than happy to collaborate with them. For children that are born here and move out of state, we do reach out to across borders and forward any child who doesn't pass to the EDDI coordinators across the country. Typically, if we know what state they're going to, of course, if it's another country, that's a different scenario. In regards to TRICARE access to services, on Friday, I'll introduce you to Jerry, since you haven't met her yet, and we'll make sure that she can talk to you about DSCC and down in the St. Clair County and any insurance issues that might be around there.
Well, if I can interrupt again, I am aware of DSCC and I currently try and use it, but the biggest issue is when the pediatricians know that they've failed. I will tend to try and call them and say, I need to see so-and-so, and they never know if they need to do a TRICARE referral or not, and a lot of them just get lost because in the time it takes for me to get a hold of the provider and figure it out, they're already deployed or gone.
I'm not sure if I'll have resources by Friday, Christine, but I will reach out to our technical assistance folks and try to pull together some more information about military bases and how we deal with those.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thanks, Christine. Are there any other questions for the good of the group? I think we've used our time. I hope people are jotting down questions and are coming into Friday ready to really take a look at more deeply at that data and developing our baseline. It'll be a full day on Friday, so I'm looking forward to everyone's participation.
Oh, could I say one thing?
Please.
A copy of your PowerPoint, is that possible? Do you share that via email?
I can.
Oh, thank you. That would be wonderful. I appreciate that.
You'll also be getting the Friday PowerPoint in advance, so if you want to download that on your tablet or whatever, you'll be getting that as well.
Okay. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Ginger, Jerry, anybody have anything else? If not, I'm finished.
Thanks a lot, Tracy, and thanks everybody for joining us. And as we said, we'll have the recording up hopefully tomorrow, and Tracy will share it with the location with everybody. And we'll see you on Friday.
I'll see you on Friday. Thank you.